everybody. Welcome back. Kurt Cinema Podcast, episode 11. I'm a professional radio broadcaster. I'm Jeff. I'm joined by Derek and Kyle. Thank you, Derek, for joining this week. We all saw Guardians of the Guardians, the Galaxy.
Yep. They guard the Guardians who guard the galaxy. That's right.
Correct.
Volume 3. So we touched on it already. We diddled our opinions on it with Current Gen on the last episode of that, which came out on Monday, Monday. And I thought let's just use this space to talk spoilers. And I think we can probably, much like with John Wick 4, fill an hour on this. If we even need to go that far. But like, the floor is open pretty much. Just want to let anybody that's listening know or watching, and you haven't seen the movie, for the love of God, just like, and you don't want to spoil yourself, just like stop listening or watching. Like, seriously,
no big deal.
Because we're gonna get right into it. And I feel like the biggest twist, at least to me, and spoiling in 3, 2, 1, and nobody dies at the end of the movie. Like, I found that to be the most interesting.
Yeah. Because they really set it up that, like, there's going to be so much loss, like, I felt like there's, like, a vibe of that to the marketing.
Yeah.
And there were stakes, I don't want to, like, come off like they were, like, it was stakeless and, like, nobody grew or anything like that. Like, a lot's changed by the end of that movie. Yeah, nobody dies. Yeah, nobody big dies.
I did not expect anybody to die.
Okay.
No, I didn't get the impression, like, hey, this is the final one for this gang, therefore somebody was going to die. I guess technically there was loss, meaning like the original gang is no more.
Gang.
And obviously they set up at the end of the movie. They set up for like a new crew, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That little girl is Quasar, by the way. I don't know if y'all know that. That's a character. It's a very famous character in the Marvel Universe. Yeah, she's Quasar.
Which little girl? The one that was like talking.
The little girl who's with them in the team at the end that they rescue from.
I thought that was Phyla.
Yeah, Phyla becomes Quasar.
Oh, okay.
She's not Quasar. That's like she has to go through her whole story first.
That's right. That's becomes Captain Marvel at one point.
She does,
yeah. But it's Marvel's daughter, who was Jude Law's character in the Captain Marvel movie. But he did.
Obviously, all that's different here.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of liberties taken here, but I did find it very interesting, especially because the movie started on kind of a somber note. Even though Endgame was resolved, they're playing this really slow version of Creep by Radiohead, and I'm like, oh, it's that kind of movie. Okay, so we're gonna get some death here. And I didn't expect the opening of the movie to be the part where Nebula carries Peter Quill's body, which we've seen in the trailers and stuff. I thought that would be later. I thought he was going to be like hurt or something like that later on.
No, he's drunk.
No, he's just drunk and he needs to go to Betty Bye. But yeah.
He's had too much space milk or whatever they're drinking. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, it's that Luke Skywalker milk, whatever that is. From Last Jedi. Even Nebula, I thought was, if anybody could have died, I thought it would be Nebula, because like she had the most growth, and her dying for the team would have been like the ultimate sacrifice. I
thought it'd been funny for like Gamora to die again. That would have been funny.
Yeah,
like they just iced her. Jesus,
the first half of the movie.
The universe wants her dead so hard. Yeah,
that would have been funny.
Yeah. But I like Gamora's character in this, and I like how she stays her own character. I talk about a really cool idea. Because there is always a worry about like the multiverse, like bringing in like a stakeless like universe. Like this is a completely different Gamora, and she doesn't fall in love with Pete at the end of this movie. Yeah. She goes back to her own family. She doesn't join back with the crew or even stay there or anything like that. She has her own family with the Ravengers and stuff like that. And it's like she's her own character. That other character that we knew as Gamora, like she is dead.
She had like at the end kind of a shift where she was
she has some growth.
These guys could be my family. You could tell she was thinking about it, but then she was like, nope, I got one.
She has a family, yeah.
To her, that was just like one mission with them. But sure, she had some fun with them. But beyond that, no, she's got her family that she spent years with.
Probably learned to appreciate the family that she had more, by watching them, So it's like, there was some character growth going on there. But I liked how they didn't like revert her or just like through space magic they're in love again because they're soulmates. And I didn't want to hear any of that mumbo jumbo.
Especially because Peter was kind of coming on a little strong. Very strong on the comms, movie. Which was a very funny bit when everybody was like, we can hear you.
It's really intuitive. Green is orange and orange is blue and black is blue. And
I mean, that's definitely what I loved about this movie more than anything was the humor. Like,
the humor
like
actually working.
Yeah, like I shared on our Courage In podcast, I would say 90% of the jokes landed.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree with that.
Even if 10%, I don't even know if 10% missed, to be honest with you. I know there was only one where maybe they were trying to get a laugh that definitely nobody in the theater laughed and I didn't. But other than that, everybody was laughing. Yeah. I'm not the type that like literally laughs out loud. I'll usually go, that was good. That was funny. But I was actually laughing out loud. I was like, awesome. Dude, this is so ridiculous, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I absolutely love Drax. Yeah. I just think he's that your typical dumb, fun character. Like almost every like comedy has that dumb, fun character that's unaware that they're dumb, but everybody else is aware of it and they make fun of it. And he's that character, and even if he's semi-cliche, I love it. I
like how the movie addresses that too. Where you guys think I'm dumb, and everyone's like, yeah, well, yeah, you know, yeah, stupid, yeah, exactly.
I can't recall
too long where he didn't get like overwhelmingly insecure or emotional about it. He was just kind of like, okay, I'm dumb.
Well, they had a beat there where I was like, was that supposed to be a joke? Where he's actually coming off genuinely hurt by the fact that Mantis thinks she's stupid, because they're the ones that have, everybody's kind of segregated and has their own bond. Like those two have a really strong bond. They hung out all the time since Volume 2, and then she makes him forget, and I'm like, was that supposed to be a joke? Like the forget part?
Yeah.
Or am I supposed to feel like
she manipulates how he feels a lot in this movie, actually? Yeah. and they ask her to do it to Pete one time, and she's like, no, that's not right. I'm like, you have been mind erasing. You've been roofying, like Drax all movie.
Emotionally roofying, yeah.
Yeah, but she's in love with Drax, whereas the other characters, Peter Quill's just her brother. So I can understand her letting it slide with Drax because she wants to, in a way, because he's rejected her like. He didn't do it as much in the third movie, and you saw a shift even with his feelings. Mm-hmm. But in the second movie, like, all I remember from that was him tearing her to shreds.
Yeah, he was pretty mean to her, yeah.
Yes, and even in the beginning of the third movie, he was doing it as well. But again, I'm going off memory, so I could be off base. But in the second and in the third movie, you could tell she had feelings for him.
I always kind of saw it as like a sibling, like brotherly and sisterly, but but some sort of love or strong. Like she had some strong connection to him immediately, more so than any of the other Guardians, since two, because
they're both like
screen time together.
Like different. They're kindred spirits in terms of like they're different versions of gullible, like completely
aloof, gullible people.
Yeah, whereas Drax is very much combative in how gullible he can be. She's more naive and like, okay, we'll go over here. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go on this bike to go on that ship right over there. And then
she's agreeable. He's disagreeable.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Drax definitely had some great funny moments about like. Batista just delivers like big time in this movie for me. Like
same.
But specifically at the end of it. But like when he's just like making those offhanded comments whenever Peter Quill calls Rocket his best friend, and he's just like
second
best friend every single time. He says it like 6 times. It's so funny every time.
Yeah.
Because it's like different stakes every time Quill says it.
That's the other thing about this humor about this movie that they can get away with. They can literally use the same joke over and over, but because the characters are dumb, you laugh at it because you're like, he's only saying this over and over because he's that stupid. Like,
right.
He really believes that, that's second best friend.
Exactly.
I'm first.
And then at the end of the movie, he has that great emotional beat where like Mantis is saying goodbye and he's having to like actually show emotions and the dancing thing you can take or leave. I actually really like the dancing thing. I know it's
dancing is a big like reoccurring thing in all of Guardians, so it's like you kind of have to. Take
They're all kind of doing what Quill.
Well, even all the metaphors. There are 2 types of people: dancers and not dancers. Drax always saying dancing stupid. Like there's a reoccurring like strong dancing theme, to all these movies.
Dancing, music, it's all in there.
Exactly.
I guess that was the opening of the first movie. Was
the movie starts with dancing, and then the trilogy.
Yeah, in the end of the movie, he's like doing a dance off. He
dances finally. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's become the dancer. He's become the other type of human that he described. Yeah.
That is interesting. Okay, so I mean, I guess arc-wise, it makes sense. Love the song choice.
It's silly, there's nothing not goofy about it, but
I'm sure the cast was like, they were probably a wreck when they were shooting that scene, because it's like, oh, this is it. And James Gunn, my understanding is he plays the songs as they're doing.
Yeah, he plays the songs scenes on set. So
they were probably like a mess, because these guys have legit become family after like almost 10 years of doing this together.
Like real family, not like Vin Diesel family.
Yeah, not a fake show up late.
Even though, ironically, he's there in that family.
He is actually part of that. I saw the video of the singer of that band, Florence and the Machine, watching that her reaction first time seeing that scene, and she was just like,
enjoy that pop culture boost.
Yeah. She was just an emotional mess, like most people were watching that scene. Just kind of like, oh, we got to say goodbye to these characters.
She was like really into like being a part of Final Fantasy 2, because she did the song for Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Wow. I don't know that she knew. It's one of those things where music supervisors just get the rights through the label or whoever the publisher is, and the artist doesn't really, they have their own management team depending on their size, like how big they are. So I think for her, it probably was a moment of discovery, like, oh shit, they got my song for this, like,
No, she did it specifically for that. It's Stand By Me. It's a cover of Stand By Me. It's specifically for Final Fantasy. She did it live.
No, I'm talking about Guardians.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder. Yeah,
because I know clearing music is.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because I don't even think what's her face from Stranger Things. What's her face that you just had the song boost.
Yeah,
I don't think she realized that her whole life was about to change in her 60s or whatever.
Kate something, right?
Kate Bush?
Yeah.
Bush, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I think you're 100% right on that, I think. I think that when they just use a song, you're not obviously performing it for the movie or making a version of it for the project.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it or if someone just goes, hey, we're going to sell your song to a thing to see royalties.
It depends on how hands-on the musician is on that part of the job, I guess.
Or who owns your masters.
Normally they have a team for that. They don't have to worry about it,
Right.
I did almost have a moment of slight anxiety when Rocket scrolled over to 2000s, and I was like, oh no, he's going to play Backstreet Boys or some shit. So I got a little worried there. And then when they started with that little ukulele riff where it's just that, I was like, oh, I know this song. Like, thank God.
Yeah, music was really good in this movie.
Oh my gosh, so good. Yeah, and they even went out of his way. I think I mentioned this in the Current Gen podcast where, like, instead of doing, like, he picked a Faith No More song, but it wasn't epic. The one song that they're most known for, it was like their second tier song, basically. And I was like, see, that's the James Gunn brain. Like, he did pick that Space Hog song that's like the only song that they're known for. But people don't really think, I don't know, in my opinion at least, I don't hear that song a lot. So it was still a welcome thing to me. And that version of Creep was super good too. I don't know that I've ever heard it, even though on radio.
No, some weird acoustic version or something.
Yeah, and it was very much Tom York. I could tell it was his voice, but it was like some really, really cut down, very rough version of that song. Very raw. Great soundtrack, just like the other movies. I've never had qualms with the soundtrack, song choices and stuff. Even in, like, when they show up briefly in, not briefly, but when they first show up in Infinity War and stuff like that, I think
they're playing music.
Endgame even has some music stuff too.
Yeah, just again, like the music themes that are throughout, like this, like how it's so tied to the DNA of like the
Guardians,
like, is always cool,
right?
And it's also interesting that a lot of the songs that you hear, like that we're hearing, are actually playing, like in the scene as well, not on the backstage, but like it'll move to Rocket real quick and he's listening to that song like on the Zune or whatever. Yeah. You're hearing it, in the movie, but then it's actually like that's the song he says. I always like that too, because they've done that throughout the series as well.
Yeah, I think they have a word for that where it's like diegetic music or something. Where it's music that a character is listening to, but the audience can hear it too.
Yeah.
And then there's circumstances where I think for that Space Hog song in the meantime, where they're floating through space, I don't know that anybody was listening to music for that part, were they?
Oh, I
can't remember.
Yeah.
But
like
sometimes there are
always,
examples though where like the song will play and nobody's really listening to it except for us.
Because there's one time where like they and I think it's Infinity War where it goes to them and they're all singing together like in the cabin. Yeah. So they're
it's I'm a leather man, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Not to project, but now I'm worried for the future of these characters and the vibe of the James Gunn Guardians. I feel like anybody that touches Guardians in the future is just going to be a cheap imitation and try to recreate them. They like music and needle drops, right? And they're just going to drop all these popular songs like the Mario.
I don't know if they'll be able to do it.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're obviously going to try to do it with that new cast, or I would think they would, but
I would think so.
I don't know how all that's gonna work, to be honest. And it sounds like only Chris Pratt wants to come back.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, see ya. I bet you could talk. I bet you could talk Palm into coming back too.
Batista's like, no, I'm good. He's the type of guy who's like, I'm good. I'm ready to walk away.
And that's how I think it should. Like, to me, this was okay. So the first movie's really good. The second one's a little bit of a Debbie Downer, and then the third one absolutely nails it. It finishes off completely. And it gives you like this open ending, like their story continues. But it's one of those, again, I know I'm like the minority in a lot of this stuff. People like for endings to be like endings, like, oh, nothing else happens after this ends. And I like it when they're just like, hey, this is a setup, but we're never gonna do this again. Like, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that. Look at the end of Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
All you have to. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's like maybe controversial to bring up, but even like Game of Thrones, and they're like, and Arya's just gonna go like explore East. I don't need to see that shit. It just in my head, I know she's I know she left Westeros to go explore everything to the west or whatever, So I don't need a show about that.
Yeah, please don't spin that off. We're good.
Please don't, Jesus. But like, I mean that's a good example of just like I agree with that. I think that sometimes you can just like kind of have a thematic ending to everybody's journey for that stage of their life or whatever. But as they go on to their next thing, like we don't always need to see that. You know what I mean?
Nope.
Like I don't need a TV show about Drax being a dad. I don't need a I don't need to watch a show about Nebula, like how the hijinks are running nowhere.
It's like why we never really get sequels to romantic comedies. You want to watch them get together, and then once you get together, you're like, I don't want to see the divorce.
Yeah, I don't want to see them like literally hate each other in 6 months. I don't want to see that.
That happened with the Netflix rom-com trilogy where it was like To All the Boys I've Loved Before or whatever. First movie is quite solid. And then they kept going. And like by the third movie, I'm like, you're just manufacturing arguments at this point so they can get back together at the end. It's stupid. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
At the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that they got somebody like James Gunn with his sensibilities to write this trilogy where he didn't really manufacture any of that stuff.
No, and he was so willing to roll with the punches too, because it wasn't his decision to kill Gamora. It wasn't his decision to like have like Peter punch Thanos and stuff like that. But like he didn't write But Gamora dying is a big part of the story of this whole movie, So it's like whatever script he had in his head for the third movie, it kind of had to morph into this different movie to kind of appease and fit the ongoing narrative that the Disney made decisions without him, And I really enjoyed that, like he was just able to just kind of roll with the punches or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty candid about like those not being his decisions and those being out of his
control. Yeah. Now he's
like
been like, okay, well that wasn't me. He could have said it a long time ago, but now that he's like on the way out, he's just like,
like those were my decisions.
I watched an interview that he said the toughest thing was writing in the, I'm forgetting his name, but the character that he promised him he would have a role or whatever, and he said for the third movie, the gold guy.
Oh, Adam Warlock. Yeah.
From like
he said that was the hardest part. He was like, I have to get this guy in the story because I promised him, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do with this guy. And he actually did a great job.
Yeah. I know it might not be the Adam Warlock that everybody loves or appreciates or whatever, but like tying him into a race of people who are created by, the main bad guy of this movie was really smart, And it actually ties pretty closely to how things go in the comics. It's just it's always just a little different, But James Gunn is a student of like of the comics and especially these comics, and the way that he's able to stay so source accurate, but also tell his own story without feeling restrictions and creating new species like the Sovereign, and still like wrapping in other bigger elements like Adam Warlock being part of that race, even though that's not a race like in the in the comic books and stuff like that. It's interesting, like he's gonna do DC really well. You know what I mean? Like that's a real big get, because like this guy really knows how to stick, to appreciate the source material while telling his own story, which just seems like you either have to copy the source material or you have to make it so outlandish and different, that it makes everybody mad. And he's figured out some way to like exist in between those two.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hard line.
I've definitely seen more people be positive about the things that I thought they would complain about online. Like I thought they were going to complain big time about Adam Warlock not being one-to-one to the comic adaptation where he's like all knowing and all powerful, almost like omniscient.
There's a child in this, And
exactly. He was hatched too early, or whatever the expression is. Like he came out of his cocoon way too soon. So clearly he has like no sense. He's even dumber than like Drax and like Mantis. He has no sense of what expressions mean.
Yeah, and he goes through his own little journey, because like when he accidentally like incinerates that guy or whatever, which is like the best part of the whole movie. He goes, I kind of feel bad about that, and then he shows remorse for the rest of the movie, so it's like you see him kind of like growing in the movie too for such short screen time. It was kind of interesting.
One of my favorite replies to a hater that I saw on like Reddit, somebody was like, oh, this bastardized version of Adam Warlock, and the first comment was like, what would he have done? The Infinity Stones are dead, dude. Like they're gone. And that was his whole thing in the comics.
Comes from the Soul Stone,
Exactly. His whole thing in the comics was like being the protector of the stones, and the Soul Stone giving him so much power.
They gave that to Vision in this,
Yeah, they gave him the Mind Stone, and like in the Soul Stone, they just put on a planet with Red Skull on it for some reason.
They kind of switched it a little bit,
They kind of really didn't think that went through, in my opinion, but it did. Also,
James Gunn said that whenever in the first Guardians, whenever Marvel was like, "Hey, Feige's like, you got to do something about the Power Stone," he's like, "I literally came up with the whole concept of that story in like 60 minutes of just me just writing bullshit down," and I'm like, "Boy, he's just saying whatever the hell he wants to right now."
Yeah.
So like, just to prove your point, where it's like, I think they kind of made all that. They literally did make all that up, like all the backstory for all these stones were all just kind of like quick. Not even
you're referring to like the was it somebody in the first movie? I think was it the Collector? It wasn't the Collector, was it? Who was explaining the origins of the stones and like since the beginning of time when these celestial beings existed, blah blah blah.
Yep.
With the Big Bang, all this he made all this stuff up.
Just made all that up.
And then the MCU based their entire like theology of the stones on that. Yeah, for years after that. That's so crazy.
Something he didn't try at became the entire backbone.
I think the other thing I thought people would hate more was Gamora not getting with Peter eventually, but like we've already touched on.
That would have been I think that would have been dumb.
That would have been too clean. Like clean. James Gunn does not do really clean endings like that. Even though this movie does end pretty clean, it's too clean.
That's too clean. Yeah. I couldn't handle that.
Too happy. Yeah. There's got to be a bittersweetness to all of it, especially with the family.
Plus, I think,
including saying goodbye to
I guess you could have wrote that in, and then those two run off together. But I don't know. I kind of liked how they did it, where it was like Peter was like, "I'm out. I gotta go see my family. I gotta
face his own shit."
I gotta touch base with people that I've been ignoring my whole life. Like,
right.
I mean, we've watched 3 movies, and he's barely on planet Earth. I think most of the time it was flashbacks where
it was. And actually
he goes to Titan. He never even goes to Earth, right?
Yeah, he doesn't. And there was that whole thing
except for the very end when everyone shows up, obviously.
Everybody shows up at the end, exactly. But like that's the thing. He was on Earth for a second and couldn't even possibly register it because it was such a big battle.
Yeah.
Only thing he could register was like, wait, is that Gamora? And then like they had to leave.
And then he got kicked in the nuts, so you don't remember anything after that. That's over.
You missed the first time, got me the second time. That was such a great funny moment. I just loved all the arcs, really. I think Mantis has a really pronounced, like, it's not as pronounced as other characters, but she's got a really good arc, too, with who she is outside of being with a family member. Because, she came from a terrorist dad, kind of. An egomaniac. His name is literally Ego. Right. And then she jumped to another family, like a rebound family, and she's been with them ever since. And she's having that totally natural existential crisis of sorts. And that makes complete sense. But also, she got to be a little bit of a badass in some moments where I think there was a moment where she was like, I really don't want to fight. And then she had to fight. And she kicked ass. I was like, yeah, there's the Mantis I've always wanted to see. Like, I felt like the movies haven't really shown that before. They've kind of just shown her gone like sleep, and that's it, you know? Like,
Yeah. No, she's got like kung fu moves and stuff.
Yeah,
it's
James
cool.
Gunn let her flex a little bit.
I think that's the only negative I have in the movie is they say, and I get saving the best for last, but I still feel like even the ending action scenes were like epic, but there wasn't even enough of them at the end.
Right.
I just feel like there could have been more interesting action scenes. That's something I'm really big on, like, hence me loving like Wick movies. Like, I love good set pieces, good action scenes, and the ending is perfect. Like, it is awesome. It felt like playing the game where the team like joins up and
when you do a team up move,
they're doing a team up move and stuff like that and collaborating, and they're basically going back to the theme we were talking about earlier. Their combat style is like dancing. It's
like
all it's all choreographed. Yeah. So I love that. I just wish and you don't have to do that throughout the movie. Saving that for the end is awesome. I just feel like they could have done more interesting combat. I didn't feel like
I agree with you. Like he went and I think Kyle compared this to, multiple people have too, but I agree with Kyle's comparison as well about this being more like Star Wars than anything else in the Marvel universe, where like they're more set piece oriented and stuff like that, and then by the time the cool action scenes come, you're like, oh, you could have done that the whole time, but at the same time it kind of makes it feel earned when you get those moments. I do feel like
that's a top 5 moment.
It is for sure.
Yeah,
and the
top 5 moment of the whole MCU.
Yeah, I think they did that. I definitely think that was deliberate because they weren't really united in fighting the whole movie until that moment. So even with Gamora, so like they, and
Rocket was benched,
and the stupid pet was running with them too, like he was gonna do it. So I think that was definitely deliberate on his part to make it feel like they're together and they're slow walking and
I know that where they're on the like organic base or whatever. Like there's an action sequence there, but it's more about being silly, than like actually being like a real true like shooty action sequence. Even though there's some shooty stuff, there's some stuff going on.
Yeah, there's some. It's just some cool action stuff in there.
Yeah, but it's more about like them floating and everything looking goofy and them wearing those big dumb suits and
oh my gosh,
it's
the Michelin Man suits or whatever.
Nathan Fillion's amazing in this movie.
He's so great. You got a guy like that who's dumb. I got a guy like that. Like everybody he talks to, he's always talking crap about.
I got one of those too.
Yeah. Same thing there that I was saying earlier.
They do the same joke.
He does that joke, I think, 3 times.
Yeah, and it's
in a short span, and every time I laugh because I was like,
it's funny because like where James Gunn didn't find much of a groove in 2 repeating similar jokes, he really. And I know that's something he knows how to do. He refound his groove, for the third one because like he really went back to the well on some of those jokes, but like they only got funnier as you heard him again, which is how you're supposed to make those work. You're not supposed to be tired of the joke. By the
I don't know what he was going through with Volume 2. I definitely feel like Guardians 1 was the most involved with the MCU at large, and then Volume 2 was very segregated from the rest of the MCU.
Yeah.
But I don't know what James Gunn was going through personally that maybe influenced some of the jokes that didn't land with me or the story that didn't land with me as much. With the opening being the exception with Baby Groot dancing and everybody's doing an action scene. Yeah. I love that moment. That's so cool. But I don't know. After the Suicide Squad, and then didn't he do something else? I think he did have a hand in some of the quippy stuff and some character work in the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. Did some Peacemaker stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He did Peacemaker too. So I feel like, I don't know, there's been a lot of growth for him, and he just kind of wrote it at the right time. I think he might have shot Peacemaker.
See, I remember thinking 2 was funny. Like, I think that was the parts that I did like. Again, I liked Drax, and he was hilarious in that one. My issue was the plot. I didn't like the plot. Even though it was, again, if you think about it, it was Peter Quill's personal story.
Yeah,
I just want Rockets to be way more emotional and more interesting, whereas Peter Quill's, and maybe it was just how it was acted or written, I thought his personal story was just more obnoxious, like this over ego maniac father, and he's got daddy issues and all this stuff. And I was just like, this is stupid. Like, again, I'm going by memory, and when did that movie come out? Like 7 years ago? 6 or 7
Yeah, it was
years
2017
ago?
It came out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched it since then. So it's been
I definitely recommend, because I've seen it probably like 2 years ago again, and I still kind of feel that, like, I like it less the more I watch it. I definitely recommend watching it if you can't remember it, because maybe there are going to be some scenes that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened in this movie. That's actually really cool. Or, oh, I hate this now. Like, the more I watch it, the less I like Drax in that movie, for example. And they just kept drilling home the Mantis' ugly thing to the point where I'm like, this is not even funny anymore. It's
again, like there wasn't a lot of finesse to like redoing those jokes. Maybe not enough time passed either, because like sometimes you do it like 3 times in the same scene. You're like, okay.
And also, another reason to love this movie, it's so segregated from the MCU when the MCU has been so obsessed with connecting everything.
I was halfway
more
expecting
than ever,
like Kang to show up at some point, or like in a flashback or something. And I'm so glad that didn't happen, because it felt good just being this little encapsulated,
Dude, not only that, but the story is a continuation of what happened in Volume 2, period. That's it. They didn't even, like, the only thing they mentioned from Endgame is Gamora, and they mentioned Thanos a couple times too. But like, other than that, the main story, what drives the characters, is something that happened in Volume 2 with the batteries or whatever that they stole from the Sovereign. And that's why Adam Warlock got sent after them to begin with, is because they stole from the Sovereign. And then obviously I think they attacked him later on in the Volume 2 as well. I can't remember the circumstances. Again, now I gotta watch the movie again. Damn. Anyway, I don't know. I like the scope of the movie, even though it is a space epic. It's supposed to be a fantasy movie. I still like the scope of the story being, it's just these characters. We're not gonna worry about Kang. We're not gonna worry about multiverses.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I appreciate, and I know a lot of fans are obsessed with like the, Marvel hasn't been good since they had like a purpose, blah, blah. I get all that. And I'm not saying that having, the Infinity Stones and Thanos and having that end game climax, all that wasn't awesome. It was. But I personally, I've always been this way. I appreciate the smaller scope stories. Like, I always use the example. This is going to sound like a terrible example because it has nothing to do with, movies or Guardians of the Galaxy. But I always use the example of, like, Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil lost its way when it like opened everything up to the entire universe, and that this was a world issue and blah blah blah, and you're traveling from location to this and you're connecting characters to this and that, and it was amazing. And the reason I use it as an example is the first game and even the second game are like this isolated town in isolated areas.
And really, you're just like on a couple blocks of that town in the second. It's not even the whole city or anything like that.
It's all smaller. It's not this big world problem with a gazillion characters and politics and all that stuff. And then they lost their way for like 3 or 4 games. And then they realized they made other changes, but story-wise, they kind of rebooted it, and they're like, we need to go back to something smaller. Like this rural area with like these crazy people, and that's all it's about. It's not about what's happening in China with the Umbrella Corporation, all that stuff. It's not that. So that my point in sharing that is that's what I liked about this movie, is that it had its own personal story. Like you guys just said, it doesn't really address everything else going on outside of that, but it felt like its own movie in that universe, but the scope was smaller and more intimate. That matters too. Because I know they've done other movies that were just like smaller scope. They didn't have that overarching purpose like the first few phases were. But people didn't like it. Why? Because they didn't connect with the stories. They didn't connect with the characters. This movie, they absolutely did it. And they did it, in my opinion, aside from the one small little qualm, and I'll watch it again to see if I even really care about this, where I was like, oh, it's just not enough cool action scenes. But other than that, I felt like the movie was borderline perfect. Like, I was just like, nails the humor, nails the action, nails the characters, nails the story, nails the emotions, nails everything.
I keep on referring to it as like, well, it's the most fun I've had like since Spider-Man. I feel like that's super reductive because, it's reducing what I really mean. Like it's literally one of the best they've ever done. across the whole MCU. So saying it's just the best one since Spider-Man is I feel like is too small of a compliment.
That's true, because we're at like 30-something movies now.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. This is like
crazy.
It's so high up there, you know, for me in terms of how good it is. And I feel like the audiences are maybe connecting with it more consistently than the critics were, which seemed a little more split.
Actually, if you look at the cinema score, which is basically just pollsters outside of the theater, you know, asking regular people, what did you think of the movie? All three in the entire trilogy got an A. Every single one of them got an A from the regular audience, movie-going people.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. Like and that's the sentiment that I think I see online too, from everybody that's not a hardcore comic books are my Bible type of person. Yeah. You know, everybody that looks at and accepts it as a movie, as its own form of a medium, you know, they've all loved it. You know, I haven't heard a single person been like, I don't know, but this one part though really made me hate it. Like Adam Warlock made me hate it. Like people I talk to, I mean, like I'm sure there's people online that exist that say that.
Oh, but, sure, it takes all types, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just glad I have people in my life that are like, we're all pretty much on the same page.
I mean, I feel like
this and John Wick 4 is like unanimous to me.
People were pretty happy with this movie, at least all the people I've talked to. So
whereas Quantumania, they felt the same about that, and that it was like, you know.
Well, I feel like when you look at it, like you bring up John Wick 4, and then this movie, like the fourth Wick, the third Guardians of the Galaxy, and we're talking about those two being easily the best in the entire. And I'm a huge Wick fan, and it took me a while I had to go see it a second time, and I was like, no, this solidifies it. 4 is the best. Yeah. There's no doubt about it now. Yeah. And I think it was my nostalgia holding on to. No, there's nothing better than the first one.
Yeah.
Second and third are good, but
there's nothing like the first time. You know what I mean? Nothing quite like the first time.
It definitely.
The first time was very surprising. It felt like a straight to DVD type movie. You know, John Wick, what's this crap? Get out of here.
Yeah. And he kills his dog. That's stupid. And now we're all like, they killed his dog, man.
Get him. Get him.
Yeah, no, but you're right. You're right. Like, it's easy to have those kind of rose-tinted glasses. Not that you need them to enjoy the first John Wick movie. That movie is absolutely fantastic. But, like, again, that first time, the feeling of, like, wow, this is a really cool thing. Yeah. It's hard to supplant that, no matter how good, like, you know, ongoing sequels are. That's why Guardians still feels really special.
Yeah,
because,
that first one was like
Marvel had never taken a swing like that before.
Yeah, it was huge. It was their biggest gamble since casting Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Like it was,
which was like their first decision.
So. And it was like I even watched there was a mini series. It's called crap. I can't even remember it. It was on Vice TV, and I know they're going bankrupt, so they might not exist by the time I recommend this show. But anyway, each season they cover, like the first season they covered Star Wars and how that franchise panned out, and then they did Marvel. I wish I could remember the name of the show, but eventually they got to the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff and how like they were interviewing people that were like in the room when it was being pitched, and they were like, I'm sorry, there's a tree, there's like a raccoon and a tree. Yeah. They were just like so like, what are you talking about? Why
they're all dumb?
Yeah, they're all stupid. Yeah,
they're all
assholes.
Yeah. And then it turned out to change. It literally changed the MCU and how they shoot movies. Like if you actually look at the color palette in Guardians 1, it was the first time it was like very vibrant and bright.
Yeah.
And then now Quantumania was literally a Guardians movie. Like
it was
with that sheen, I guess.
It was trying to be that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was just that image, that type of like color or whatever. They've just been trying to imitate.
But even like the humor.
Yeah,
I feel like after the first one and people love the humor, like all their movies have always had humor, right?
Yeah.
But not this over the top.
Well, and it's edgy too. There's a lot of like jizz jokes and like in all these movies. That's not like a one movie thing. Like James Gunn really likes to see what he can get away with, and like Marvel kind of lets him, and that's kind of cool. But those types of like quippy jokes, like while they're not copied in other movies, I feel like they're trying to at least capture some of that magic a little bit in the humor, especially in Infinity War. I think you said, Jeff, that like James Gunn kind of maybe wrote some of those lines for the characters.
Yeah, there were a lot of the writers that invented the characters for the movies, like or I guess adapted them, had a say in the script.
Got some say, exactly. Thank goodness, but like it's
like Ryan Coogler with Black Panther, for example.
Right.
Yeah, so there were a couple other points I wanted to hit, and then we can, obviously you guys can chime in whenever, but the Rocket story was obviously, that was like the linchpin for the entire movie. That was like the heart of the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're getting all of his flashbacks, and that was definitely one point that I've seen. This is definitely, like, as the expression goes, mileage is going to vary for a lot of people, where they're going to look at it as animal cruelty, even though they're CG animals. They're going to look at it and be like, this is too. I'm getting too wound up by this and affected.
It's dark.
And like,
yeah.
there's some people that I've followed that were like, I had to step outside the theater for a minute. Like, it was just very dark. And it kind of harkens back to what you're saying about James Gunn kind of getting away with a lot. He was kind of getting
We're
away
gonna
with a lot.
mutilate
Not just
animals
comedy,
in this
but,
movie,
like,
and Disney's
yeah.
like, okay.
All right, I guess we
Yeah.
don't
It's
know.
your last one, buddy. Go wild. Yeah.
Well, that's actually, I think when people are that affected by something that they saw in this movie, these animals are talking. These animals are clearly CG. That, I think that speaks to the quality of how they look and how they're written, that people are so affected by this part of the story.
The CG looked really good.
Yeah,
Like, where
like,
sometimes, like, even
made me
in
go, what happened?
Quantumania,
The rest of the
I was
MCU,
just like, this is obviously all shot,
Right.
really weirdly. But like, almost everything in this movie looked really, really, really good. I
Yeah,
don't think I had a single part where it looked like Black Panther was like a claymation doll or something like that.
Right.
Like both Black Panthers did. Mind you.
Right.
This
So if
movie
anything,
didn't
I
have
take
this
people
moment,
being
yeah.
so deeply affected as like a compliment to how good
Absolutely,
it looks.
yeah. I feel like
because they're not real animals, and our brains know that, but like our hearts are like, oh, this feels real.
I know it's not exactly Uncanny Valley because it's not seeing humans, or it's not seeing humanity in something, but it's adjacent because you are, again, like instantly connected with like these cute animals, and they make them so cute. That's the other thing. Even when they're like Frankenstein's monsters, they talk cute, they're trying to act cute and stuff like that. And I think the juxtaposition maybe just too much for people, which again I get.
Also, I think the connection that he builds in those memories, where they become like his friends. They're all friends. All four of them are really, really like I felt more for the four animals, not just because they're animals. Like, I'm not one of those people like, I don't care about kids, I only care about animals. I'm not that way. But the way they created that narrative with those four animals becoming buddies, and that they have this dream of escaping together, and not escaping. At first, they think they're going to, the perfect planet.
They're expecting to be taken along to that.
They're expecting to be together, and then their plans change, and they're like, oh, we're going to escape together, and they end up perishing. And it just absolutely tugs at your heartstrings, not only because they're animals, but also because of how well they're written. The whole narrative. Whereas the end, don't get me wrong, you don't want to see kids being killed or whatever unless you're crazy. But it's like when they were like rescuing the kids, I didn't feel as much for them because they weren't.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually.
Yeah.
And there was no part of it that was like, oh, well, I know who that kid is, and I know how much that person loves that person, or whatever. There was none of that. It was just here's a bunch of kids that need to be rescued.
Right. The kids part had more to do with like how the Guardians specifically were going to react to them, and not so much I want you to care. But like, I think James Gunn or whoever was probably just like, they're kids. Audience is going to care. Like, they're going to give a crap.
Yeah. One, I got worried too, because like Thor ends on a big, like, let's give the kids powers. I was like, if this happens again, I am going to lose it. And it didn't happen, thankfully, so I felt like they were just there enough and enough of some sort of thing to worry about that was there. But he double dips, to Derek's point, like, on the animals again, because they go back and they rescue more animals, so it's like really like the real big message at the end is all life matters type of
like on a deeper emotional level. One of the biggest scenes for me that affected me the most was him seeing the younger raccoons and finally accepting who he is, basically.
Yeah.
And then like the way the music swells and like, oh my god, dude, that scene was so freaking gorgeous.
Actually, people in the audience were laughing when he saw Raccoon.
Yeah.
Because, all he ever says, I'm not a freaking raccoon.
Yeah.
I'm not a raccoon. Stop calling me a raccoon. And then he looks at you like, I'm a raccoon.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
we all knew it, but it was...
Again, like, back to the dark stuff, too. Like, his first spoken word is hurt. It hurts. And he says it so, like, innocent. And, I'm just like, this is wild. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Again, just wildly dark,
I think Bradley Cooper did all the voice acting, even in the younger phases, so they just used like a voice changer or something.
They probably modified it,
Yeah.
I like the
what a range.
I like the part where, they kind of do the imagery that Raccoon's dying, and then he meets up with that I forgot who the girl is, but the girl that Layla, and she like does that like where she starts talking to him, and then there's like this long pause, and then it was so powerful. Like I got goosebumps, and she's like, "But now's not your time," or something like that.
Oh yeah, the animal heaven that he goes to, or whatever. Yeah.
He's dying, and she's like, "No, now's not your time."
Yeah, she puts her paw or whatever on his hand, on his chest, and she's like, "Not yet."
So powerful.
Yeah, well, he goes, "Can I go with you?" And she goes, "Of course you can." And then as he's walking forward, she goes, "But not right now." You know, I really like that. I thought. It was really sweet.
And then the moment right after where Nebula hears his voice.
Yeah.
Bro.
Oh yeah.
And then I had all those flashbacks of Endgame of them being alone. You know,
Yeah. I really like that too. And they set up really nicely because like with his animal friends, he goes, you know, we're gonna get in a spaceship together and we're gonna fly away together and have adventures. You know, he doesn't have that with them, but that is his future. You know, for a different family. You know, for his new family, that he gets to fly around and have adventures with his new family.
Right.
So I like that. Even though like that background's really sad, like you still get this like idea that he got what he wanted, you know, out of like his freedom, Rocket, that is obviously. So I like that. I think it's just really good, just good storytelling, man. You know, it's just good character development. Again, for a bunch of like weird, like assholey, like space, you know, characters. It's weird how endearing and human and everything they are. And I know that James Gunn always said that Rocket was like the character that he saw himself the most in, you know. And you know, you could always tell that like he was always kind of Trojan horsing him to be like the secret, you know, hero of all these movies.
Very much so.
Kind of always the smartest man in the room type of situation, you know. The story feels extra special for him. Like you said, it didn't work quite with Peter in the second movie, Derek, you know, but it works so well here because I think that James Gunn's obviously writing through a lot of like self-reflection in that character. Yeah, and it just really shows the amount of care and the amount of struggle that a real character can go through because maybe a real person had gone through it, you know?
Yeah, for as much as
identity
he
and all that
identified with and loved Rocket, he had to create a counterpart that was just as horrible. And that's where the High Evolutionary comes in. That was my final point I wanted to talk about.
Oh, he's such a bad guy.
Dude, he's so deplorable. And not in a way where it's like, well, actually, he has some good points. No, he's just full on terrible.
No, they don't even try and make him, you know, like likable. The first off, he mutilates animals, so it's pretty easy to be on team fuck this guy. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
and then when he mocks Rocket's crying, it's
this guy's like he
die.
shoots Layla, and then like it's crazy how maniacal he is. And I also like his bad guy speech, and Peter's like, I cannot handle another bad guy speech, you know, from some impotent
I felt like that was
motherless,
James Gunn talking. Like James Gunn was like, I have to write this speech, but how many MCU villains have done this by now? You know, Kang has done it just recently.
He's very an old school like villain because most modern villains are the way, especially since Game of Thrones, the way we demand it to a certain extent. I know I do. Like I don't want everything to be black and white. Like I don't.
The shades of gray is really important.
And the bad guys are bad. We don't know why, but they are. And it's usually more gray. Like you watch a movie and you're like, yeah, and this is what you were saying. It's like, yeah, I get why he's doing bad things. He just has a different perspective, but I understand how he got to that perspective. No point in this movie did you go, I get why he's making an unearth, and he's literally making this Earth for an ego trip. It's all about people. He just wants to play God. He wants to be a king.
He literally admitted to it. Yeah.
The second someone criticizes it, he's like, "Oh, okay," and blows up the whole planet. You know, that one criticism. And he's like, "Oh, you're right. Let's torch it." You know, like that's like. Who does that? Who creates civilization?
And he literally says that, he even admits as much. Like, and I love that James wrote this line in so nobody could identify with him. Is that he goes, "There is no God. That's why I stepped in." And I was like, "Oh, there it is. There it is." He said the thing right there. I
liked it. Yeah, that's
good.
There's
no coming back.
It's just good. No bad guy, man.
Cool villain where it's just like I'm terrible because I'm terrible. There's no gray. There's no origin story that this bad thing happened to me and that's why I'm this way. I'm literally an insecure, fragile control freak who just wants to dominate and rule the world. Doesn't care who I hurt, who I kill, whatever happens. I don't care. I'm a narcissist. So
I'm going to creepily stretch my face across my broken face, you know, like, which is crazy. Like the whole look of him is just, it's kind of uneasy to look at, you know,
Yeah.
like again, like the amount of blood that was in this movie, the amount of like, again, the lean into like more R adjacent jokes that he somehow got away with this in the movie. It just felt so James Gunny. It felt
Oh
like
yeah, like the F-bomb,
like
for example, which we've already said is very casual. Like we said it on the Current Gen podcast. Like it's just very, very casually thrown out there in an unsuspecting way, and it's like that's exactly how you want to do it. You don't want to build up to it the way they did with Zack Snyder's Batman, which was so freaking corny by the time he said it.
Right.
Like the way that Gunn planted it in this worked really well. But that does feed to your point about he's dancing on, like James Gunn is dancing the furthest on the edge that he's ever danced with this script. And that includes the visuals of High Evolutionary's face when they rip it off. I'm like,
oh yeah, like
wow,
it's just it's a mess underneath there. It's something you'd see in a rated R movie, you know, like that's it's very crazy.
I heard, like, it wasn't a sold out showing for me by any stretch, but I definitely heard people going, oh God, like
I think I go, oh.
I didn't know you were gonna do that. Okay.
Yeah. I was surprised. I feel like she was gonna pull it and it was gonna like go away and everyone was gonna go, oh, like react.
Like when Rocket was actually mutilating his face. They don't show it, but you know exactly what he's doing, so you expect him not to show it. This isn't rated R. I didn't expect him to actually show his face. Like, that's fine if you pull it off, but I expected it to just be kind of like, that's where it ends. You just pull it off. They look at it, and they're like, ugh, and that's it. They full on are like, no, this is what I look like. I'm going to actually talk.
And then when he talks, he's like,
Yeah. It's funny, and it's another layer to his ego where he's trying to create this perfect world, but like he himself was like far from perfect. Like not even just like mentally, but physically and everything as well. So
I did love, by the way, that the Gunn wrote him so hateable that it made the scene where he gets his ass kicked by every single one of them, including Gamora. All of them were gratifying. Like it was definitely
it was cool.
Played like one of my favorite scenes.
It was a great bad guy beatdown for sure. You know, like sometimes it's
felt
cool
as
to
good
see
as
a bad
Thanos on Titan when they were beating his ass until
that was a great scene. I like that scene a lot.
They were all of them were like ganging up on him and doing like really cool tricks and stuff
they
like that.
They almost got it. Yeah.
But this one was more of like a street fight beatdown. Like they were just like, no,
this is like MCU's version of World Star, where someone like this guy got jumped. You know, like it was crazy,
and it was earned. And yeah, dude. That's all I had. I don't know about you guys.
We wax poetic about it. You know, it's definitely one of my favorite MCU movies to date. Sure. You know, I don't know what mood I went into the movie for it to like hit this hard with me. I don't know if I was just like, well, you know, the reviews are kind of mixed, and I just kind of went in just with whatever attitude.
We heard a spectrum of reviews. Like it wasn't just like everybody going, it's really good. It was like we heard every version of
I mean, I think Jeremy Johns, I always watch his stuff, and I think he liked it, but he had some gripes about it. And then I heard you two say you liked it. I don't think I saw details of what you liked. I think I just saw that you liked it. And then I had my, obviously, gripes about the second one. So there was no major hype for me. So I definitely think my reaction to the movie, I'm not saying, the movie was average and I made it better because my expectations were low.
Yeah, I don't want to come up like that either, yeah.
But, like, my expectations weren't that high, and then I watched it, and I was just like, immediately, and I said this on the other podcast, I was like, first of all, I was literally talking to myself as the movie was going, and going, this is the most fun I've had in a long time. Like, I absolutely love John Wick 4, but that's not like a fun movie as far as like, this is fun. This movie was, this is fun. And I already, of course, granted, the way I watch movies now that I have that pass, I'm like, it doesn't cost me extra money. So I was like, I'm going to see this again. Like, whether somebody comes with me or not does not matter. I'm going to go see this movie again.
It's an easy convincing for a double feature on this one.
That I'm actually looking forward to seeing it a second time just as much as the first time, just because I want to just enjoy those moments even more. And
we probably laughed over jokes. You know how James likes to just package in jokes on
I also sat by a couple that felt the need that during every quiet time, the woman had to say something, and it was all in Spanish. So she'd be like, blah, 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 and the guy would be like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, can you shut up? Like, this is
anytime there's a pregnant pause in a movie, they're like, I can't believe this is happening
Yeah, but you just whispered. She wasn't even
I'm
whispering.
sitting literally an inch away from you. Can you not?
It was ridiculous, and I'm like, in my brain, because I can be a jerk, and I don't have a problem calling people out, but I'm like, it's a lose-lose situation. Like I call them out, cause a situation, and I look like the asshole.
Yeah.
So as long as they don't get too loud, I have to just tolerate it. And when I say it was literally throughout the entire movie, it was literally throughout. Anytime there was a quiet scene, it was just.
So frustrating.
I have that almost every time I go to the movie. I thankfully didn't this time. And I sat next to. Sorry, it sounds like we're railing on girls all of a sudden. I had a group of 3 girls like sit right next to me, young, like 20-something, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go. These kids are gonna ruin this movie for me. Not a peep out of them. So.
Wow, that's impressive.
Look at me, Judgy McJudgerson over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're just judging based on your past experiences.
Yeah, but it's not even because they were girls. It was because there were 3 buddies, and every time I go and there's like a couple or buddies sitting next to me, they're just gabbing the entire time. Almost every time I go.
It could be guys too.
And it's been
totally.
It's been guys in the past. If they were young people, I was probably gonna have the same reaction. But
that's actually why I don't go to night movies. Is I try to avoid the young scene. So
I don't do weekend nights.
Yes.
Yeah. I try and see it on Thursday.
If I go to a Thursday night, I will. Like I saw Sisu, which wasn't as big. Like there was like maybe 15 people in my.
Not a Marvel.
So it was about the same as mine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about that one. I ended up actually sitting because our seating is assigned. I ended up sitting. I was actually. I don't know why they did this. They bought tickets to sit right next to me, even though you can see.
Did we have the same Sisu showing? Because that literally happened to me. I bought my ticket first.
Why did you buy tickets
right to the right? And then this couple sat right next to me, and there were nothing but free seats. Why did you buy those seats?
I have gotten up. I have gotten up and moved seats down before while making eye contact before.
Luckily, I came in after they had already sat down, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sitting by them. And
exactly.
Sat over one, and I was like,
in principle, I sat down, and I was like, no, I bought this seat. You bought this after me, you pieces of crap. And I sat down, and
that's crazy. That's
it's ridiculous. But anyway, so while I was watching it, I had already predetermined whether my kids want to go see it or not. It doesn't matter. I'm going to see this movie again because it's that good. So,
time, man.
Yeah, it's a classic. I don't do ratings. I've never grabbed all 30 Marvel movies and been like, this is top 5. It's easily top 10. I know that, but it could be.
Yeah, there's so many now that you're like, what
would
be
it's hard.
in the top 5? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what my top 5 looks like, to be honest. I'll have to consort a list.
Guardians 3 is definitely up there for me in the upper echelon for sure.
It's in the upper half.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put it that way for sure. Upper third, I would even go that far.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Might even be above the first Guardians just because we know the characters so well and the emotional beats just hit harder.
I think the payoff like really got there for me.
But I think the third one's the best, and that was kind of my point with. I don't know why my screen just went blank.
Oh, you're not using it, right?
I don't know what's going on. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes,
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I don't know why my screen.
It just looked like you were like an anonymous, like, please.
Yeah, you went anonymous for a couple of seconds. But...
Keeps like going black, so I don't know.
James Gunn, we're coming for you.
I was trying to say that I think this one's better, and I just think it's crazy that, like I said, this is the third one, and it's better to me than the first 2. Yeah. And John Wick was the 4th one.
Yeah.
The 4th one. Like,
how is this happening? Yeah. And now, not only
sequels, guys.
Mission Impossible 7 is coming out, and that has the potential to be even better than what's come before it. And we're like 6 movies in. How is that possible?
I just rewatched all 6 of them, and easily the last 3 are way, way better than the first 3 to me.
Yeah.
Like they blew them away, and I know the 6th one is my favorite.
Oh, so for sure. Me too.
That these guys making better movies, and normally, I don't know, when I was younger, it always got worse as
it got worse. That's
look at like I don't know why this is popping in my brain, but like look at Hellraiser, RoboCop. Like I mean, those just went in the tubes as soon
Starship Troopers.
As soon as they put a number on it.
Good movie of those.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's because that back then, and obviously I don't have proof of this. It really people use this, the term cash grab, and it's overused and it's stupid because it's not really what's happening a lot of times. But I think back then, like anything that was success, they were like, get it out as fast as possible. pull out. And I
Hire
think
some nobody that doesn't know the source
Recast
material
if you
to do
need
it.
to. Don't care.
Yeah,
Don't care
recast if
about
you have
quality.
to. Yeah.
Right.
Whereas I think, and we've had our gripes, and we talked about it actually, about how some of this stuff, like under Disney leadership, has been very like, get it out, get it out, get it out. So there are that stuff's still happening, but I think for some franchises like Keanu Reeves, I know cares about the John Wick franchise, so I do believe he takes care of it. He doesn't just go, how can we get this out real quick? Like, just give me a basic plot and let's get it out. Get some good action scenes. That's it. That's the formula. That's all. Same thing with Guardians. I trust. Now I'm forgetting his name. Gunn. I trust him that he actually cares about what he puts out, and the proof is in the fact that almost everything he puts out is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like really, really good. And to a certain extent, yes, he has a formula, but he does switch it up. It's not like I'm just watching another James Gunn movie. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Like
he's got a style, but yeah, I don't know if he repeats a lot of his.
Yeah, he's literally that crazy that he writes stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, like nobody else would do this, and you do it so well.
It's kind of cool. The style actually mirrors the characters that he's writing for. Like Guardians, the entire trilogy is just more colorful as it goes along, whereas the Suicide Squad is just super gritty, and Peacemaker resembles that style too, like super gritty and violent, like street level. So he's got like a clear vision.
Eagly was in this movie, by the way, guys.
Oh, really?
The actual eagle they used for Eagly and Peacemaker was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Yeah, I swear to God, yeah.
That's
so you heard it here first. DC Marvel crossover, it happened. We had our first crossover character. In an interview too, he's like, I mean, I can't say that that's Eagly, but it's the same eagle.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny though.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of animals, Cosmo's a good dog.
Cosmo's great in this movie.
That was fun, and I love that it was like such a dog thing to be like, you didn't mean that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and to hang on to it. Dogs are like that, you know.
I love it. I like how she's telling her like sob story about how the Russians like mistreated her and threw her into space. She's like, and that wasn't as bad as being called bad dog. You know, like, the wind up to that joke, you know, and everybody at the table, you could tell everyone had heard this story 1,000 times. They're like, oh God, would you please apologize so she'll stop, you know, talking about this?
Oh,
and Fragment's even little mini arc with the whistling stuff. And,
I liked it. Yeah, he was trying
Yondu
so
having
hard.
A little cameo that was fun. Yeah,
he was trying so hard to be Yondu. He wasn't being himself, and I liked his little like moment of realization. You know, where that's the entire.
It's all
about your heart.
That's the entire theme of the movie is like finding out who you are.
Yeah.
Around who you're around, like everybody, you've established that this is my family and I love them, but like, who are you really?
Yeah. How do I get into all this?
Finding yourself. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good.
It's good
Beautiful
stuff. The only thing left to do is to do. I'm just going to go over a snapshot like I do every week of the box office for this past weekend. And as you might guess, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is an easy number one. I think they were projected to get like 130 or something like that initially going into the weekend, and then they ended up getting 118. So actually, it ended up kind of going over because like on Saturday the industry adjusted the expectations to 110 million, and then they still got 118 by the end of it. So I mean, it's like a win, but not really. But also, that's a lot of money. So who really? It's gonna have legs. Let's be real.
Yeah.
It's got so many good reviews. People are gonna keep seeing it. Kind of like the Super Mario movie, which is number 2.
Chris Pratt ruling the box office right now.
Yeah, he is.
That is. That's funny.
And I'm assuming he's a dead guy because in Evil Dead Rise, because that's number 3. That movie's still getting a lot of people in the theater.
Maybe we'll talk about this movie soon. Just saw it. It deserves to be up there. So.
Yeah, it just made. I'm
glad people are seeing this movie.
I think it just passed 100 domestically, 100 million. Like it's making a lot for.
I would say that has to do with word of mouth.
Because word of mouth in the franchise. Yeah.
That isn't a movie that I would think would be that successful, but I really saw a lot of people like online reviewers saying this is an amazing movie. Like even it piqued my interest, and I've already said to you guys I don't watch horror.
Yeah, you don't watch horror movies. Like that's definitely like going for the shock gore value, but it's like on the funny side of the spectrum. Like it's not trying to be like Hostile where it's just gross and you're supposed to throw up or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like comedic and cartoonish in a way, how violent it is, especially in the third act, where you're like, this is so much blood, it's just insane. Like, it's just not even logical. It's fun though. It's really, really fun. Number 4 is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's about girls perioding all over each other.
I'm not gonna watch that.
It's actually quite good.
I know you liked it, but Jesus Christ.
What is it called?
It's based on the book. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Okay, I've seen, because I'm always checking AMC. I've seen.
Yeah. Who's like the main people in that? It's played. The lead girl Margaret is played by the little girl who played original Cassie Lang in the first 2 Ant-Man movies. So she's come like a long way, and she's like a full-fledged actor now. And then you have Rachel McAdams and one of the Safdie brothers are like the main adults in it.
Okay.
That Safdie dude is showing up in like everything. He was in Licorice Pizza. He's like, I think he was in a trailer for another movie that I saw that a lot of people are in. I can't remember what it was now, but it might be the freaking one of those crazy cast movies like Oppenheimer.
Oh one of the 20.
I think it was Oppenheimer. He showed up and he was like, "You can't do this, man." Like, he's one of those guys. It's like, you can't do this.
Yeah, sure.
Number 5 is some rom-com called Love Again. Never gonna see it. Hey, guess what? Not gonna see it.
I know what you're talking about. I'm looking at it right now.
I don't know what that is.
Priyanka Chopra Jonas.
Yes.
That hot off of Citadel, Amazon's biggest bust that they just came out with.
Dude,
that Stark Boy.
Like, Amazon's soon to be coming out with the Disney statement of like, we got to start removing content from our channel.
Yeah. We are making a lot of bad shit right now. Sorry, guys, about this whole Citadel fiasco.
They should probably double down on doing shows like Jury Duty, which was actually quite enjoyable and really funny, where it's like a pseudo-reality television where one person doesn't know that a trial is real and they're on the jury, and everybody else is in on it, and like just kind of coming up with outlandish situations, but not too outlandish to where he's like, this feels like a reality show, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's how
sure.
by the way. He's like a good old boy. So they got to do more shows like that, budgeted. Let's be smart about it, But they have so much money that they don't give a crap,
Let's do another Tomorrow War movie or whatever. Like they're really tanking themselves. It's crazy. Which I know it's crazy to say. Amazon's never gonna run out of money, but like,
they are.
Your $10 billion Lord of the Rings show that everybody hates is
I was gonna ask you guys, because you know all that stuff. How did Lord of the Rings do as far as like financially with them?
I think the first very, very, very high viewership, but it dropped off 70% by the last episode.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know how you measure success with streaming, because that means a lot of people, watch the first season, which is good, or watch the first episode or a few episodes or whatever. But like, I don't know if how much the drop off counts for whether a show's successible.
And there were some big reveals by the end of the first season that I'm like, why would you not want to stick around for this? This is so cool. Like, I
know a lot of people who like that show. I know a lot of people who hate it. So
I know, me too. Unfortunately, I'm friends with more people that hate it than loved it. But I'm an apologist for it. And
I would say I was very neutral. Like, I didn't watch it and go, oh my god, I'm so angry at all the casting and this is so woke. I was just like, okay, it's fine. It's fine.
It's a healthy position.
It didn't do anything that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
I mean, I'm a gigantic Lord of the Rings fan. It's like maybe my 3rd favorite property to ever exist, and it wasn't even on my top 10 favorite shows of that year. Also, maybe the greatest year of television ever. So, like it had a lot of competition for me, but didn't even make my, top 10 that year. So,
yeah. I enjoy Lord of the Rings, so if they do a season 2, I will support it.
It's already shooting. I'm sure the writer's strike is.
Yeah, actually, I think they're one of the shows that's like, no, scripting is done. We don't write when we're shooting, so they're just going to keep going. I think. Or I might be confusing them with House of the Dragon. I know they're shooting simultaneously, so I don't know.
Yeah. Got it.
But yeah, Amazon never runs out of money, like Kyle said. So I mean, they're going to continue to make their profits off of shopping and undercutting competition, that's a strategy. I'm not knocking it. And they're going to keep making their money and just spend like throwing it all away on TV and not seeing returns on it. I mean, that's just what they do.
Terminal List, guys, stay tuned. Another season.
Terminal List Part
Come
2. Citadel Part 2. We're going to spend even more money this time.
Right. Yeah.
We're
going to get another Stark Boy. There'll be 2 Stark Boys in our show now. Get out of here with that.
Anyway, that's it for this week's Current Cinema. Well, I mean, I kind of want to be back for next week because there's going to be a lot of new movies that Kyle and I will both want to talk about. Like, I think you're watching Evil Dead Rise and some other ones that have just come out.
Yeah,
and I'm seeing the new Always Sunny guys movies that are coming out, like not Rob McElhenney. He's the one that's not in the movies. Glenn Howerton is doing that BlackBerry movie, and then Charlie Day directed and starred in a movie and wrote it. And I'm seeing both of those this weekend, and now I got to look for an outlet to talk about that. So, we'll try, but if we don't get mad at us, our one viewer listener,
who's Derek, who's here right now. I'm kidding.
So you've lost all your viewership this week.
Exactly, it's gonna be 0, even though it's a hot topic. It's still gonna be 0. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'm gonna end it with a high pitched going.